72 hours. 72 hours I have taken a break from the internet. I enjoyed my very long weekend. It was beautiful, and I come back to absolute mayhem, okay? Oh my gosh! We are going to dive right in because there is so much to get into. There is so much happening. And wow, if anyone's exhausted here, it has to be Blake Lively's team, but they are making a lot of money, okay? Those lawyers are working overtime. Because one thing's for certain and two things for sure. Blake Lively was never sexually harassed on the set of It Ends With Us. This is not the way you go gallivanting around, showing all of your power and your friends and your life and acting all bubbly-dubbly like everything's Gucci when you're in the middle of a legal battle. Now is your time to face the people who violated you. And this is not how you do it. And also, how the heck are you claiming that your businesses have lost so much when literally you've just launched new products? And also, breach of contract, where is the contract? Okay, this is just, I am absolutely at a loss for words for what has happened this weekend and what continued to happen in and outside of the court, and we are going to get into all of it. Okay, so first we're going to talk about the fast news, the headlines that have been coming out, and then we're going to break down exactly what is happening in the courts, because I truly believe that Blake is trying to drown the courts with all of these court dockets and these motions and these letters, and just like absolutely, I fully believe that this is abuse of the judicial system, but we are going to get into all of it because some of the headlines right now are just liar, liar, pants on fire, but we're going to break it all down. So if you're ready, I'm ready. Grab your emotional lip glosses. I have 3 available because we're going in. You're in frame with Mandy Magnan. Let's just talk about some of the hot headlines from the weekend and everything that Blake and Ryan have been parading around doing. And then we're going to talk about the Daily Mail has dropped a little bit of a article about Blake Lively's company and the toxic workplace environment involving also her brother, who had a relationship with one of the employees, and Blake's response to that. And then also we're just going to talk about the motions that were filed. We're going to break them down, look over them so that you can see exactly what is going on. And then I'm going to get to a few of your comments because they are bangers. And yeah, that will be the day. So right away, let's just get into some headlines I saw today that were absolute bonkers and untrue. I'm not saying that all of these publications aren't reliable, but I think a lot of the headlines are very much clickbait because they just aren't true, and it's just very disingenuous to do that. For example, Blake Lively requests sanctions against Justin Baldoni and his team after claim of Taylor Swift. The sanctions, which we're all going to get into, has nothing to do with Taylor Swift, okay? Blake Lively files motions over allegations involving Taylor Swift. Blake Lively's moves to sanction Justin Baldoni team. And then that also talks about Taylor Swift, but the sanctions have nothing to do with Tay Swizzy, okay? Like, I just think that this is clickbait. And if Blake Lively's team wants to always talk about how Justin Baldoni and the Wayfair party's response is just further abuse to her, and every time they respond with something, they're like, oh, they're further abusing her. This is what they do. I mean, every time Blake Lively has filed time-wasting motions inside the court, the headlines go wild. So who really is doing it for media attention and clickbait at this point? Blake Lively's week started with events, of course, because who doesn't have the time when you're fighting a $400 million lawsuit that you were repeatedly sexually harassed in, and then they tried to smear you after with an untraceable campaign. You know, now is your time to fight and strategize and lay low and actually face the people who did that to you. Why not party? So it started with this weird post. I mean, this was just earlier, like later in the week. She's at this thing. She names all of the people. And just in And in Blake Lively's style, it's so weird because she always boasts about love and how everyone's her best friend. Everyone. Everyone loves Blake. They're just like, oh my God, they're the best friend that anyone knew that they needed. Love you more. This man is such a good friend to me and everyone in his life. You meet him and he brings you into his trust and warmth like an old friend. I love him and his family so much. And my heavens, he is one of a one-of-a-kind artist. Two-of-a-kind artist, because you must count his equally extraordinary wife. But yet, a lot of people pointed out that everyone in these pictures don't follow Blake. So, I don't know. She's claiming that they've been best friends forever. Yeah. Then you have very strange selfie posts of her going to like a 90s party, although she didn't take any pictures with anybody at the party. She did like a picture in the mirror, like a selfie alone. And don't invite me to a 90s party if you want grunge. I live and die by glitter pop. Okay, but then the next post is what was really weird. A Spice Girls watch. And this is, to me, trying to block the SEO search optimization, because at the same time this was happening, it was reported that Ice Spice stopped following Blake Lively on Instagram. And you know, the celebs take this following and unfollowing very seriously, okay? So Ice Spice was reported to have unfollowed Blake Lively because she's besties with Taylor Swift, but then Blake puts this post with a Spice Girls watch on it, and it sounds a little threatening, and we'll get into it. It says, I've had this watch since I was 10. Remember, 10 years of text messages that apparently she threatened to put out about Taylor Swift. This is the problem for hoarders, moments of validation when you have a reason to say, see, I knew I kept this for 27 years for tonight. Let's be real. This watch is a treasure, and my baby necklace that I've had equally as long. You've had your baby necklace equally as long as your Spice Girls watch? That's strange, but anyway, I think this is her saying, like, I have everything. I keep everything. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, as in to anybody watching. Yeah, to all of her dragons. Yeah, her and Ryan have something on y'all, I bet. That, to me, this is what it's screaming. And don't even get me started with all of her posts of launching a new product, because how are you launching new hair products when you're literally claiming that your business suffered because of the smear campaign, but you're out here launching new products? And I already went over Blake Brown and the business module and how they've signed up to like for everything cosmetic. So I just think it's hilarious. And then, of course, her and Ryan out and about, smiling and happy. You know, they were spotted in Soho over the weekend, turning heads for a rare public appearance. A rare public appearance. All they've done is be out in the public. What is this article even saying? A rare public appearance, please. They've been out so much that we are so sick of seeing their faces. And then, of course, this headline got me too because it was kind of funny. So Blake Lively was seen out also this weekend. It was a busy weekend. You know, who has the time when you're a mother of 4 and you're in this huge legal battle and you're launching new products to be out and about every single night? But she was out with Selma Hayek, who we'll get into. But this headline says, Blake Lively took a break from her legal battle to spend quality time with her sisters Robin and Lori Lively. This outing comes amid the actor's lawsuit drama against It Ends With Us co-star and her alleged fallout with close friend Taylor Swift. Blake Lively took a break from her legal battle? Was she ever on the clock? There's no way. All she's done is been out. I'm like, what is going on? Which brings me to Selma Hayek. Now, I've done a video of this interview before, but I thought now more than ever it would be very appropriate to play because Selma Hayek, as soon as I saw this video, I thought to myself, that's where Blake got it from. Mean Girl, she talks so horrible about a director, writer, how she took over the set. Her and Blake went to rewrite scenes from it. And this is just completely not how you talk about directors or writers, even when you are collaborating or you get the chance to rewrite scenes. It's very distasteful. I don't know how much credit this gives, although Selma Hayek and her husband, very up there and connected. But let's just watch this interview because to me it was like gross. This is an interview that she got on the SAG-AFTRA Foundation. It's about an hour and a half long interview, but somewhere within the interview they start talking about savages and start talking about Blake Lively.
This is a good story.
Good.
All the bad stories you've heard about Oliver Stone.
He's a polarizing figure, but never boring, right?
I'll tell you a good story about Oliver
good.
Stone. He wrote the part for me, and I heard about it from other actors that he was going to cast for the other parts, and he had told them that I was going to play that part and that he wrote that part for me, but he never called me.
She's talking about Oliver Stone here and how she was told by her reps and by everyone that this role was going to be given to her, but he never called her, and yeah.
He casted the entire movie, and I'm like, Evelyn, did he go? No, no, I hear about it, but I'm going to call him to see, hey, we're here. But didn't call her back. Once everybody's cast, finally, you know, he brings me along. I don't read the script because I don't even know. And I read the script, and she was a good character, but she was like
One-dimensional.
One dimension. And
it's a very interesting interview, the way she is able to talk about this director honestly and take over the script. And also, who goes to camera without the script written? It's a little bit strange.
In everything. And when we started the rehearsal process, you know, he says hello. He says like stuff like knucklehead stuff all the time, and it's kind of scary, and he's a bit intimidating. And thank God I had my girl Blake, whom I adore, and it was Blake Lively and me against the rest of the world.
Just her and Blakey up against the world. Oh, that's so sweet. Just taking over the script of another movie.
It's a very macho movie. It's a very macho movie. Yes.
And I said, I don't like this, the way this is written, and he wrote it.
I'm sensing a trend with this.
Yes, but
no, it's great. You have
they
to
don't
say
write
something.
good things for women. I have, you know why I have a career? Because I can write. They give me chicken shit, and I have to make chicken nuggets.
I have to keep in start and stopping, of course, for copyright infringements, and even then, this, who knows?
Every time. I never got the good parts. They were not, I made something out of those parts. And I said, it's not good. Why? Oh, you think you can do better? What would you say? And I start telling him, and he goes, stop. Bring me the recorded. Improvise the entire scene. And we start taking notes. Wow. And then Blake jumped in and started saying, yeah.
I just don't think, to me personally, the tone and the way it's done and then the boasting and bragging about it is just like not collaborative, honestly.
My part thing is, I'm sorry, Oliver, you are brilliant, not necessarily known for your female roles.
No, not in the least.
And he said, no, I like what you're doing. Take away the script. This scene is about this. Do the scenes.
Amazing.
And we would rehearse. I would rehearse with the mic. I would improvise. I like that. He would laugh. Amazing creative process with Oliver in this.
I really truly think this is where Blake got her gusto, her little gusto, to be able to think that she can just take over and have authoritative positions.
He is collaborative in that sense.
He was in the rehearsals a dream with me, maybe not with everyone, huh? Because if he doesn't like what you're saying,
Right.
it's really hard. Right. But he's smart. And then eventually the very last scene, I had one scene with Blake, and he said, I didn't have time to write that scene. And it was an important scene.
Was it at the dinner table, the scene we
Yes.
were talking? Yeah.
And I said, don't worry, we'll write it.
To me, it's just, I don't know. Let me know what you think about this interview, but I think it's very, very telling. The type of actresses that they are. And even if this story is true, which it seems a little bit not, it just seems a little bit boasted and braggy-ish and very Blakey, if you know what I mean. Even if it is, why do you need to, say these kind of things about the director and the writers and the film in order to make yourself look so good?
We'll write it, we'll bring it to you, and you do the corrections. It's easier. This way you don't have to bother.
I'm just imagining what he's thinking about. This is all.
He said, go, write it. We brought it, and he said, it's good. And that's what we shot. That scene is written by Blake and I.
So they took the script, went and rewrote it, and that's what was shot. And she wants everybody to know.
Wow.
And you know what was so exciting for me? The trailer, a lot of the lines in the trailer, all the lines in the trailer.
Yeah, great. Awesome. And we have to just remember that every single thing is strategized. Everything is on purpose. So even her going out with both of her sisters, when I think only a week or 2 weeks ago, there was articles coming out about how the other sister was kind of cast aside because she wasn't as famous as the other Livelies. And now the sister's there. I mean, everything's kind of crazy, and having Selma Hayek in your corner. After I saw this interview, I kind of knew exactly, I just kind of knew exactly where Blake got it from. And I'm sure it was from this kind of demeanor for sure. And then, it's just so gross. And every time I keep watching interviews of Blake Lively doing the press tour of It Ends With Us and speaking from the filmmaker and director and executive producer POV, she made the movie, it absolutely disgusts me, because everything you do in pre-production and the years of planning and the strategizing and getting it all together is so much work for an actor to just come in and absolutely bulldoze her way through production and take it over. It literally makes me sick that she is still Blake Lively going on with this whole charade and this whole lie, ruining people's lives, actively ruining people's lives, and then gallivanting around the city for the last 3 weeks like nothing is wrong. Okay? We all know about your friendship with Taylor Swift. Some of your best girlfriends are unfollowing you on social media. You're ruining people's lives, literally. That should do something to a person. Whether Blake Lively is guilty or innocent, even when you're up against something like this, it's still devastating. It still hurts you. It's still affecting you that you have to be going through this in some way, and that you are, by facing it, are going to hurt people and ruin people's lives, whether they are, these sexual predators or not, all of their family, their children, etc. That affects you just and should as a person if you are actually a good person with a heart. And that's why I truly believe that these two, Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively, have a lot more to hide, because they are just, they won't stop. And I think it's so that they can, one, fix the SEO, and two, keep us so busy that we're not unearthing all of their other deep, dark secrets. And I think a lot more celebrities are involved and a lot more of their friends. And I think Taylor Swift is just the tip of the iceberg of the amount of evils that they have been doing and the power that they seem to think that they wield in Hollywood. I'm literally absolutely, like, honestly sick to my stomach with Blake Lively's entire charade of stuff. I think she is one of the most vile human beings that we've seen in a long time, with this big of a platform and this much power, where she just truly believes that she is unstoppable and is boasting in our faces. And if you don't think that Spice Girls watch was something about Ice Spice, please, because I didn't talk about this when it happened, because I wanted to give Michelle Trachtenberg the right respect and, you know, not make it about Blake with her passing. I wanted her to get the attention and not Blake Lively. But if we remember correctly, that's when Blake Lively broke her silence on social media, and she made that post about Michelle Trachtenberg. And in that post, her eulogy to Michelle Trachtenberg, who they've worked together, I think it was like 12 to 14 years prior. There was no photos of them since then, to come out and give this eulogy about her freaking lip gloss, which is insulting to lip gloss people, okay? But it was just so interesting because she kept using the words yummy in her eulogy. And at the time, what the SEO was talking about was how she was texting Justin Baldoni with using the word yummy. So now there were stories coming out last week about Ice Spice, and then she posts a watch with Spice Girls. I mean, it's all very in your face. She's laughing at everyone and thinks that she is unstoppable and more powerful than anyone, actually more powerful than Taylor Swift, which brings us into our next article. And this is just, I don't know what to think about it. Taylor Swift's team finally speaks out. Allegedly, she hasn't spoke since all of that stuff dropped last week with Brian Freeman and da-da-da-da-da. And it was silence, and her silence was speaking loud, volumes. But today, Taylor Swift's team allegedly did make statements to the Daily Mail, and they are saying that Taylor Swift is 100% done with the friendship of Blake Lively. And in the article, it says Taylor Swift's decade-long friendship with Blake Lively is past the point of repair. The singer, 35, is done with the actress, 37, a source exclusively told DailyMail.com. And their mutual pal, Gigi Hadid, 30, is also reportedly cutting ties with Blake. It comes following reports that Lively allegedly threatened to leak embarrassing private texts from Swift unless the pop star agreed to publicly back Lively in the legal feud. We know all of that, but this is what the source says. There is no recovering from this. Their friendship is done. What Blake has done was exploit the godmother of her children and manipulate the public into thinking that she was watching out for her best interests, the source added. Taylor Swift is the godmother to Lively's 3 eldest children. Taylor is done, and Gigi is done with Blake, and she has no one to blame but herself. Taylor is a girl's girl, and she loves her friends. She will bend over backwards for them, but when that trust is broken, there is no going back. Then they talk about Gigi Hadid's birthday party where everyone was there, Bradley Cooper, Bella Hadid, all of these people, but of course Blake Lively wasn't there, and the source is saying, the insider is saying, it's because Hadid is no longer friends with her. The pair were reportedly introduced through Taylor Swift, but it is understood that Gigi's loyalty is to Taylor. She is not and will never be one of Blake's dragons, our insider said, citing an alleged text exchange between Baldoni and Lively in which the actress compared Swift to a dragon. Yeah, nobody wants to be called a dragon, and I don't think anybody wants to be called a dragon when you're Taylor Swift to Blake Lively. I mean, my gosh. But again, I do have a theory that I think Ryan Reynolds wrote all those texts. But anyway, I mean, yeah. So Taylor Swift broke her silence allegedly today. And of course, I saved the juiciest tea to be spilled today. It is hot. It is piping hot. And we're going to go over it. Apply your emotional lip gloss now because it is getting thick in here. And Blake Lively and the Livelies, You're in trouble, girl. And already I can hear the gaslighting coming from Blake Lively's camp. Their response is going to be like, this is more smear campaign. They're abusing her more. You're attacking women. This is 100% not true. Everyone's lying. Yeah, everybody is lying about you, Blake. Everybody. 90% of the people that have come out is lying. Everyone's lying except for you and your husband. Please. But I can already hear the gaslighting. It's like already programmed in there about what they're going to say. They're going to deny, and then they're going to blame this as a smear campaign that Justin Baldoni is still furthering. And then if that doesn't work, they're going to say that this is further abusing the victim. Blake Lively, the victim, right? So inside story of Blake Lively's disastrous attempt to copy Gwyneth Paltrow's staff blow whistle on drugs, affair, and a bed in the office. That's the title of the story, and it actually comes with this is when I was reading it, I didn't even finish reading it. I just screenshot it because I was like, this is juicy, and I wanted to share it with y'all first. It starts with the impression Blake left on me after I worked at Preserve is that she doesn't care, said another ex-employee. It was a really toxic work environment. Staff spoke anonymously, fearing backlash from the Livelies for calling out the allegedly shambolic and inappropriate work environment the actress presided over. Many were asked to sign non-disclosure agreements about the dramatic implosion of the company, staff said. Some were also said to have received settlements of up to $300,000 after threatening legal action over their treatment. And yet, not even a whisper leaked to the press at the time, supposedly thanks to the work of Blake's fastidious publicist, Leslie Sloan, who is currently also embroiled in the legal battle with Baldoni. Shocker. Surprise, surprise, Leslie Sloan is involved. Preserve had a promising beginning. Blake partnered with a successful LA marketing business, Christian Menon, who helped launch Preserve using staff from his company Phenomenon Marketing in 2014. Florid blog posts on a glossy website promoted Florid blog post on a glossy website promoted earthly recipes and artisanal apparel amid glowing Polaroid promotional snaps of Blake. We believe that nurturing a better tomorrow upholds the yesterday we cherish for all of us, the About Us page grandly proclaimed. But staff claim that when the Blake's brother became involved in a leadership role, things went downhill fast. Eric was a handsome Hollywood actor with a notable role in 1999 Disney's channel So Weird, and previous small roles in The L Word, Full House, and American Pie. But his career did not soar like his sister's. Eric filed for bankruptcy in 2009, and his last on-screen role came in 2014, according to his IMDb page. The article continues. In the fall of 2014, Preserve moved from Phenomenon's LA offices to Eric's studio apartment in Lower Manhattan. He hired about 80 20-somethings from the world of digital marketing design, and for the next year had a reign of chaos, according to some staffers. Eric was completely unqualified to run a company, one employee said. There were a lot of ways in which the employment was unprofessional. For many weeks or months, there were no desks. We had to sit on the floor. The irony of it being a lifestyle site that was selling these really expensive wares was not lost on anyone. It was a big studio. There wasn't a delineation between living quarters and working quarters. The bed was part of the same room. There was a whiteboard, but it wasn't really furnished. Felt like he was being an actor, acting the part of creative director of this company. One day, suddenly out of nowhere, he said, "You need to put together a strategy and present it tomorrow." You show up for work the next day and he's still asleep. Others said there were frequent left outside in the cold on weekday mornings waiting for Eric to let them in. People would be outside in the cold and he wouldn't let them in because he was still lying in bed smoking a bowl, one claimed. He was taking lots of prescription pills. He would openly smoke. He drank too. He'd get to the office and it would smell like weed, another staffer claimed. It was clear he partied the night before. Another staffer said Eric was very charismatic and convincing. You wanted to be around him, but at the same time, you don't know what you're in for when you're around him, they added. We were subject to his moods moods and whims, and those were very dysregulated. There was anger. You had to walk on eggshells. Sound familiar? I think it's the whole family, y'all, because that sounds exactly... There was no one with a sane mindset watching over us, another employee said. Eric would tell us to do random things. We'd have random meetings that went nowhere. One insider said that they were told about a particular bungled 2015 photo shoot. Preserve employees in a fashion model were allegedly driven to Blake's mansion in Westchester County, north of New York, to plan for the upcoming shoot, but Blake didn't emerge until 2 hours after the group arrived. Staff said Blake came out of their house hours later looking like an absolute mess, the staffer insider said. The whole idea was to show that she was styling the shoots. All she was doing was adding accessories like bracelets for the pictures. That was her only input. The insider said, other employees also told me about a preserved fashion shoot run by Eric in New York days later. Blake had no part in it. He had somehow finagled students from a film school to assist with a shoot as free interns, and it was a disaster. The staff said the environment was frantic. Late at night, in our 5th floor walk-up, they were hiking gear up 5 flights of stairs in a panicked rush. Late nights were not unusual, according to one employee. Some people were working every single day, 20 hours a day, a crazy amount. Not because there was work to be done, but because it was so dysfunctional and Eric captured people into his sphere, the staffer said. The use of Eric's loft as on all hours business irked neighbors who filed complaints with the City of New York Department of Buildings in January 2015. Inspectors visited but were unable to gain entry. Building department complaints accused Preserve of illegal commercial manufacturing use in residential zones, with an anonymous filer writing, I would like to report someone who is using their apartment as an online business and constantly have 10 to 20 people in their apartment at a time. Staff said one irate complainant was their downstairs neighbor, former NHL player Sean Avery. However, Avery, 45, played down the alleged nuisance when contacted by the Daily Mail, saying it was fine really as far as New York neighbors go, adding that he met Blake once and found her to be very nice and beautiful. Oh, she's gonna love that. She wants to be so beautiful. The staff members also told Daily Mail that Eric had a sexual relationship with one of his employees. They continue to say that some of the staff members were uncomfortable about the relationship. Yeah, duh, he's a boss. But it's also because Eric was married and had been since 2005. Staffers go on to say that paychecks were sometimes haphazard too, and that they were unable to afford their subway fares when Preserve failed to pay them on time. Wow. And this is where it gets juicy and Miss Blake Lively comes in, as it's her company, right? At their wits' end with the chaotic and toxic workplace, senior Preserve staff arranged a meeting with Blake at a hotel in New York City in the spring of 2015 to ask for help, employees told the Daily Mail. Blake immediately shut it down and said she wouldn't be entertaining anything about her brother, one staffer said. The entire meeting was about Eric, and Blake just didn't want to hear anything about it, so it went nowhere. When they went to have the meeting, Blake didn't care about any of it and didn't want to hear about any of it, said another staffer, which is why some employees ended up going through with legal action. Indeed, some staff threatened to sue, though all alleged disputes appear to have been settled before public court documents were filed. One employee is said to have received a settlement of up to $300,000 and moved out of state. Sources close to the company said that multiple legal actions were launched after the company started firing staff. All were asked to sign non-disclosure agreements to stay silent about the going on of the company. Preserve's shutdown was reported in 2015 with many articles mocking its pretentious blog post and lack of successful business plan. In a June 2015 interview with Time Magazine again, Blake blamed the brand's lackluster launch on sexism and the media. They pit women against each other, she said. Wow. So she's been using this excuse her entire life. The victim mindset. This whole, oh, because I'm a woman mindset. They pit women against each other, she said. You don't see male entrepreneurs pitted against each other, destroyed, picked apart, and every word they say served up to judge. But Blake also claimed that the launch of her business was rushed in order to be featured in the August 2014 edition of Vogue magazine. We had a Vogue cover set up, so I couldn't call Ann Wintour and say, I need 6 more months, she said. The actress added that her staff were a team of amazing people coming to work and bleeding, sweating, and crying every day and loving it. The staff have remained silent on their experience until now. Some ex-employees told the Daily Mail they decided to speak up after seeing Blake accuse BALDONI of sexual harassment and an unprofessional environment on the set of their movie It Ends With Us. It's so ironic she filed a workplace lawsuit when her workplace had 3 legal claims. 3 out of roughly 8 employees made legal claims. She didn't care to understand how the mismanagement of her brother could be affecting us, said another. She's entitled and extremely out of touch and really only cares about herself. She was always very nice to me, said a third, but you would think that for somebody so concerned with their image and the narrative, there would have been more care taken to make sure things were more professional. Gross. That's interesting and kind of bonkers because I remember that we were all looking into that website and her business and we didn't know all of the information yet, but it turns out, yeah, all of the Livelies are cuckoo, delulu, just absolutely awful, toxic bosses and human beings, in my opinion, of course. And this is a good segue to go into the court documents right now because my gosh, was I ever laughing when I read this, and totally accurate. Without a crystal ball, Katie on there, who's absolutely amazing. I'm sure everyone knows about her by now. Her work is phenomenal. She put this on today, and I just thought it was so funny. When he says you smell good, you don't have to make a federal case about it, but you will. And it was called Smear and Eau de Perfume. This might be Blake Lively's newest edition, I think, if she ever gets around to going into perfume. She should definitely make one called Smear, and the tagline, I was just like laughing so hard because I can't even believe that we're here right now, all because Blake Lively's feelings were hurt that us, the internet people, the internet sleuths, didn't like her press tour. We literally are here right now because Blake Lively and her husband Ryan Reynolds took over a man's movie, completely bulldozed their way, undermined them at every chance, took over the edit, clawed her way into the editing room, got people fired, got people replaced, took control, stole the movie from Sony and played it at Book Bonanza, then did the most distasteful, tone-deaf, absolutely idiotic press tour you can ever do for a movie like this from her husband's company, Maximum Effort, who was in charge of it. The people didn't like it. She didn't pivot. Wayfair and Justin Baldoni and Jamie Heath and Sony were all trying to get them to pivot, but Blake was in charge. She didn't do that. And people were like, yeah, you know what? F her and her husband because they're gross. And then they couldn't stand or fathom or consciously understand why people don't like them. And we are here today. Because of that. Because Blake's feelings got hurt that the world didn't like her little Barbie moment that she was trying to have. And flaunting her hair care line and her booze line while promoting a film about DV. Completely cut the director out, which everyone noticed. And talked about it. And told her the truth and held her accountable. And she couldn't fathom that the world didn't like her. That now we are here. We are here. And it's not a surprise to me that she broke her silence on Instagram when Michelle Trachtenberg sadly passed and literally hasn't stopped since. She took that opportunity to be like, yo, I'm back. And no one can do anything about it. It's absolutely wild that we're still here. But now that we are here, let's get into a few things that were filed in the court, starting with Jed Wallace and the 1,000-page complaint that everyone keeps talking about. It wasn't 1,000 pages, and what she did was just absolutely wild, but let's talk about it a little bit. This is the court docket from the Jed Wallace and Blake Lively case in Texas. So as you can see, there's the main document. This one is only about 30 to 40 pages. This is the main document, and then she filed all of these attachments. I mean, she filed every single attachment, like the Baldoni claim. She filed the whole New York Times story. She filed the certificate of conversion, the street relations article of incorporation, the amended complaint. I mean, she filed so many things. Everything that you could possibly have in here, she put in here for the sake of it being as long as it was. And I feel like completely just drowning the court system and Jed Wallace and his lawyers. It's a lot. And her lawyers are working overtime, okay, to make this happen. I have read the main attachment to the Jed Wallace and Blake Lively, to the Blake Lively's response, and it is important to go over a few of the things. Let's just go over it. Really, what she is fighting for here the most is jurisdiction and doesn't believe that it should be in Texas. She really wants to move this out of Texas. But first of all, she's saying far reaching. I'm talking about she is far reaching with her wording. How does somebody, first of all, use the word muzzle? They're muzzling Blake Lively now, and then spend the next 3 days out and about living your best life, literally coming out like this is not happening. I've never seen Blake Lively muzzled, but it would be nice for a little while if she just went away. Like, just lay low, keep quiet. That has never happened. Okay, that not once. So it's very interesting because also they tried to use in the dance montage in Blake's amended complaint versus the Wayfair parties, how they said that she was trapped in the dance montage, and anyone that watches that dance montage clip will see how trapped she is. You know, and now she's being muzzled, but this is the introduction and summary of argument. This lawsuit does not belong in this court or in any court. It is not designed to litigate any cognizable claim of defamation. It is the latest in a far-reaching attempt to muzzle a woman for speaking out about sexual harassment. Not satisfied, and for the record, I'm sorry, not to stop here. For the record, where is the proof that Blake Lively ever spoke out about sexual harassment? I'm waiting. She is using that 17 to 30 point claim, which she can't get right, whether it was 17 points on one day, 30 points on another. We don't have that, signed, where she actually officially reported it. There's no official complaints to Sony, to Wayfair, to her lawyer, to her union rep, to anybody. There's not even, at this point, she hasn't even given us any text messages between her and her friends or her partners or her union rep about any abuse on set. Where is this speaking up about sexual harassment? Where is this bravery, Blake, that you are saying that you're doing this for all women, and because you reported and spoke up about sexual harassment, there is a smear campaign? Where is, number one, the proof about sexual harassment? Number two, that you spoke up about it, and number three, that there is a smear campaign? Because so far, zero evidence. Yeah, nothing. You would think at this point that she would be leaking at least some text messages to prove that she was so distraught. She hated going to set. Other than her undermining Justin to other actresses. You would be talking to your bestie, to your family, to your mom, to your sister, to anybody, to your husband, right? Anyway, here we go. Not satisfied with their stealth social media retaliation campaign against Miss Lively for reporting on the harassment and misconduct she and others endured on the set of the film It Ends With Us, now plaintiffs and their funders seek retribution by hauling her into court simultaneously in jurisdictions nearly 2,000 miles apart. The court should reject this form of judicial harassment and dismiss the amended complaint with prejudice. Blake first filed her claim in Texas against Jed Wallace and then withdrew it. So there's that. But then when Jed Wallace files his claim against Blake Lively in Texas, all of a sudden it's bullying, it's harassment, and it's misconduct. Oh my gosh. Wallace and Street specialize in mitigating crisis by shaping public perceptions to the benefit of their high-profile clients and to the detriment of whomever they choose to target. In this case, their task was to launch a social media combat plan to bury Miss Lively's reputation, to call her credibility into question, and to conceal the bad acts of some of their clients, all in retaliation for Miss Lively reporting sexual harassment and misconduct on the set of the film. Just days after plaintiffs admit that they began work on the project, their clients reported starting to see a shift on social media, due largely to Jed and his team's effort to shift the narrative towards shining a spotlight on Miss Lively and her husband, and away from their clients' own misconduct. Once Miss Lively, just a thought, how did the news and media know about Justin's misconduct if it didn't come from Blake's mouth? It came from Blake's camp, feeding stories to the media. So who was doing the smear campaign? Hello, they hired Melissa Nathan and Jen Wallace to combat the smear campaign that was coming from Blake Lively's camp. I mean, it's pretty freaking in your face obvious what happened here. So, she makes me so frustrated. Once Miss Lively discovered this retaliatory conspiracy, she exercised her right to petition by filing an administrative complaint with the California Civil Rights Department, CRD, and after receiving CRD's permission to do so, a federal lawsuit in the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York first filed court a case in which Wallace and Street are now parties. Plaintiffs ignore the pending first filed case and attempt to shop their claim into this court, alleging that Miss Lively defamed them by including them in the caption of her complaint to the CRD. The first time in amendment, plaintiffs' claim based solely on information and belief that they were also defamed by unidentified and unspecified statements that happened to occur in Texas, one of which allegedly occurred months before Wallace or Street were even approached by their clients or funders. Another one of the newly purported statements in Texas is not even a statement at all. Astonishingly, plaintiffs now claim that Miss Lively silently defamed them by choosing not to respond when confronted with an individual who called her a liar while declaring justice for Justin. Plaintiffs' claim is meritless and fails as a matter of law and requires dismissal for multiple, independently fatal reasons. First, this court is not the right place to hear this lawsuit pursuant to the first two Rule 12B of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, the improper venue. This court also cannot consistent and constitutional due process and FCRC exercise jurisdiction over plaintiff's claim because Miss Lively is not subject to personal jurisdiction in Texas. It requires dismissal because the amended complaint fails to state a claim for defamation. The factual background. Plaintiffs were hired to bury Miss Lively in the court of public opinion in retaliation for reporting sexual harassment on the set of the film. I love that they call her an actress and entrepreneur. Baldoni and his billionaire business partner, Steve Soritz, produced and owns the film. What about your billionaire husband, Blake Lively, who clearly now is more powerful than ever? Can we talk about that, or are you just going to keep bringing up Steve Soritz's money like we're supposed to feel bad because you know that the people don't like billionaires right now. But like, let's talk about you and your husband, yeah? Miss Lively reported sexual harassment and misconduct that occurred on the set of the film by Baldoni and Wayfair CEO Jamie Heath, including that Baldoni divulged information about his sex life, made derogatory, degrading, and sexual comments, described his own genitalia, improves unwanted intimacy that had not been rehearsed, choreographed, or discussed with Miss Lively in advance, added graphic content to the script, including multiple new scenes with nudity and on-camera orgasm, and added unscripted nudity to a birthing scene for which he cast his friend as Miss Lively's OBGYN. You know, now that they know that Adam Moonshine actually got that role and was cast in that role and is a working actor and actually has more accolades than now Blake Lively, maybe they can start omitting some of their lies, okay? Like the OBGYN part. Just an idea. A resulting signed contractual rider laid out 17 specific protections to ensure a safe set, including a mandate that Baldoni, Heath, Wayfair, and others not retaliate against Miss Lively for raising concerns or requesting safeguards. Right, but where is your actor contract, Blake? Yeah, where's your producer contract? I would love to see that, since you are claiming breach of contract, but yet have not even put your contract in the lawsuit, because I bet in that contract there are provisions that you can't undermine the production, you can't go out and, make them look bad, etc., etc., etc. It's probably a way more detailed writing than that, but there are provisions for actors in those contracts that I believe you failed also, okay? As promotional events for the film began in the summer, anyway, they just go into all of that. And I think what is interesting here and what might work for them is WALLACE incorporated street in California in 2008 and converted it to a Texas corporation on February 6, 2025, after filing this lawsuit, listing the address of the California law firm of lawyer Brian Freeman, who serves as counsel for Baldoni, as both the organizer of the corporation and as Street's California agent for process. So I don't know. It just goes on. It's kind of all of the same stuff that we've heard before from her, honestly. And then what I found very interesting about this, and then the next court docket that we're going to read is in here, because Jed Wallace was saying, well, you attached me as a sexual predator. You put my name in there that I was involved, like Justin Baldoni, Jamie Heath, Steve Soritz, It Ends With Us, Jennifer Abel, Melissa Nathan, that you didn't break down exactly what I did and part of it, and that I was a sexual harasser when I was never even on the set. I didn't even know what I was being hired for except to look at trends. He put in a legal affidavit to that effect and then said, like, you attached me in with a filing that said that you were sexually harassed and then smeared for reporting sexual harassment. Therefore, my name also falls under sexual predator now with all of these other people, if that is true. Well, she's coming back to say that, like, the attached CRD complaint named the same 10 individuals and entities in its caption, and in its 62 pages explained the specific details in the form of factual allegations that form the basis of Miss Lively's claims. The nearly 50-paragraph factual background section detailed the sexual harassment that Miss Lively and others faced on the set of the film. The remaining 125 paragraphs, as described immediately below, detailed the retaliation plan for Wayfair, Baldoni, Heath, and Soritz, launched after the film's production in the summer of 2024, with the assistance of Tag, Nathan, Abel, and the plaintiffs, and relied heavily on the text messages exchanged amongst some of the defendants. Other than in the caption, Wallace's name appears in only 7 paragraphs of the attached CRD complaint, all of which relate to the retaliatory campaign, and the majority of which refer to Wallace in the context of text communications that identify him by name. Okay, so let's remember that, because that's very important. Because tell me how in the same breath yesterday, Monday, Blake Lively in the lawsuit against Wayfair did file the judge for sanctions against the Wayfair people, all but Justin Baldoni, because their complaint is a little bit messy. It doesn't exactly say why, for example, Jennifer Abel is filing for extortion, why she deserves it, why Steve Soritz is this. It doesn't really explain it. And she wants them sanctioned. She's using the most extreme law there is in the courts, Rule 11, in order to have them sanctioned because they didn't appropriately put into their complaint who is owed what and for what. But Jed Wallace just did the same thing, and they're fighting. Yeah, well, you know what? You were only in 7 paragraphs of it, so you know what? Suck it up. Who cares if it was messy? You know what you did, and it clearly states that this is why you were in it. Well, hello. How are you fighting this in one court and then in the next court trying to get the Wayfair people to be sanctioned for the same thing y'all did? I am just mind blown by the gaslighting and the crazy of the Lively team, honestly, every day. But let's get into exactly what happened with the sanctions. If you want, I can read all of the things that I found very interesting about the Wallace case I can read over the entire things. As you see, I have it highlighted. There's not that much highlighting through it, but it's only about 30 pages. But for the sake of this video, I'd like to move on to the sanctions. But yes, again, just let me know if you want that whole video. I might do it if I have time anyway this week, because I found it very interesting, as I like reading all of the court documents. So if you want that, let me know, okay? I just want to put on the screen here from the court listener. Oh, gosh. Sorry, I just looked in. I look like a hot mess today. I just want to put on the screen here just to show you the moves that Blake Lively is saying, and not to believe what they're actually saying to the media, because they're always saying to the media every time Brian Freeman responds to a motion or letter or puts out a statement, oh, he's doing this for clickbait, oh, he's abusing the system, oh, he's further damaging our client, oh, he's abusing Blake Lively even further. Just take a look lately, and this is for both pages, because now we're at 2 pages here on the court listener, of all the stuff that has just been filed from Blake. Every motion, Blake Lively, Blake Lively, Blake, look at all the stuff that she's put in, all of this, Blake Lively, every single one is from Blake. Look, this is just from May 16th until the 19th. All of this, all filed from Blake. Not one thing. And now, of course, Brian Freeman and the Wayfair parties are going to have to respond. And I bet when they respond to this attack, an absolute spaghetti on the wall, I feel like overload of stuff, Blake Lively's team is going to be like, oh, look at them doing it just for clickbait. No, you're attacking them, and you have been on the offense and on the attack ever since you signed, or maybe didn't sign, your acting contract to get on the set of It Films With Us. You are absolutely a monster. And I really hope that Judge Lehman finally puts his foot down. I know he already striked Brian Freeman's letter that we went over last week, but I think that something needs to get done, because even trying to submit sanctions for this, for something so minuscule, is not providing in the complaint who is for what. Even if he does just dismiss that, which everything in her argument is already in her motion to dismiss. Her and Ryan's already filed a motion to dismiss because of these same reasons. So to now use this rule and sanctions, the most extreme case, for something so minuscule that they could actually just fix, is wild. It's wild to me what kind of games they're playing. But first, we're going to go over the first things on May 19th, which was her motion for sanctions. They do ask that the judge seal a couple of them, but we're going to go over Brian Freeman's response back, and all of them are the exact same reason. So they have everyone in here except for Justin Baldoni, and they're all citing, well, in your claim, you didn't tell us who's responsible for what we did to which person, so therefore you should remove this claim. And then we'll get into a few of the responses. Again, more. It never ends. It ends with never. This is the main document, the first document that was filed with all of those attachments to talk about Rule 11 and to have sanctions. This is just a declaration of Ezra A. Hudson in support of consolidated defendant Blake Lively's motion for Rule 11 sanctions against plaintiffs Jennifer Abel, Melissa Nathan, Steve Soares, Jamie Heath, It Ends With Us Movie LLC, and their counsel. So basically, this is coming from Blake Lively's lawyer, and it's very short, but it just says, I am an attorney licensed to practice law in California and am partner with the law firm Manat, Phelps & Phillips, LLP, counsel of record for consolidated defendants Blake Lively in the above captioned action. I have personal knowledge of the facts set forth herein, which are known by me to be true and correct, and if called as a witness, I could and would competently testify thereto. I respectfully submit this declaration in support of Ms. Lively's motion for Rule 11 sanctions against plaintiffs Jennifer Abel, Melissa Nathan, Steve Soares, Jamie Heath, It Ends With Us Movie LLC, and their counsel. Attached as Exhibit A is the true and correct copy of the safe harbor letter and motion that I served to Mr. Freeman, Mr. Schuster, and their respective law firms regarding claims by Jennifer Abel. Then the same thing is Exhibit B, for Melissa Nathan, Exhibit C for Steve Soares, and then Exhibit D for Jamie Heath, Exhibit E for the safe harbor letter that she filed for It Ends With Us Movie LLC. And then Exhibit F is a true and correct copy of the letter of response that Michael Gottlieb and I received from Ellen S. Garfor dated May 13th. I declare under penalty of perjury that the foregoing is true and correct. Executed in Los Angeles, California on this 19th day of May in 2025. Each letter is pretty much the same and will give you the exact same idea of what they are going for with each person. So this is the first one that they did with Jennifer Abel, dated April 23rd, 2025. Dear Mr. Freeman and Mr. Schuster, on behalf of our client Blake Lively, we write to address the frivolous claims asserted by plaintiff Jennifer Abel against Miss Lively, which violate Rule 11 of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure. In accordance with Rule 11 enclosed, please find a copy of Miss Lively's proposed motion, which we intend to file as to you, your law firms, and Abel if Abel does not withdraw the following claims. 1. Civil extortion. 2. Intentional interference with contractual relations. 3. Intentional interference with prospective economic advantage. 4. Negligent interference with prospective economic advantage with 2 and 3. 5. Breach of implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing. 6. Defamation. 7. False light invasion of privacy. As you know, Rule 11 imposes a duty upon counsel to ensure any pleadings or motions presented to the court is not frivolous, legally unreasonable, or factual without foundation, and is not being presented for any improper purposes, such as to harass, cause unnecessary delay, or needlessly increase the cost of litigation. For the reasons discussed herein, Abel's extortion, interference, implied covenant, defamation, and false light claims are so destined to fail because on the facts and existing precedent that no reasonable attorney could believe they were well grounded. Indeed, as described herein, Abel's claims are so baseless that the only plausible conclusion to be drawn is that you brought them for the improper purpose of harassing Miss Lively, causing unnecessary delay, and needlessly increasing the cost of litigation, all of which prohibited under Rule 11. If you do not withdraw the aforementioned claims here, Rule 11C, at 21-day safe harbor period, we will seek sanctions against you, your law firms, and your client. Any such sanctions would be in addition to and independent of any cost, attorney fees, or damages that Miss Lively is otherwise entitled to under applicable law. Abel's extortion, interference, implied covenant, defamation, and false light claims against Miss Lively are frivolous. Abel's extortion claims is legally unreasonable and factually baseless. Abel cannot support an extortion claim against Miss Lively because she makes no factual allegations that Miss Lively threatened or demanded anything from her, nor can she. Abel's extortion claims and related request for punitive and exemplary damages asserts that Miss Lively made threats to the Wayfair parties that included demands that money, property, services, or other sources of values be conferred upon Miss Lively without consideration or contractual entitlement thereto. In support of this claim, Abel identifies 2 acts, neither of which has anything to do with her. In her opposition, Miss Abel claims that Miss Lively supposedly demanded that the Wayfair parties, using a humiliating and false statement, taking blame for Miss Lively's press woos. Specifically, the FAC alleges that the executive communicated the demand from Miss Lively and Mr. Reynolds that Wayfair, Heath, and Baldoni make a public apology that day, and that if they fail to do so, the gloves would come off. The FAC goes on to suggest that Mr. Reynolds and Miss Lively demanded that Wayfair put out a statement accepting blame for the problems during filming with an express threat that they themselves would attack Wayfair in the press if Wayfair refused. Emphasis added. In other words, the only threats or demands at issues were allegedly made to Baldoni, Wayfair, and Heath. The same is true with respect to the second purported extortionate act identified by Abel, that Miss Lively purportedly demanded that Baldoni, Heath, and Wayfair submit letters to the PGA in support of her certification for the PGA mark, which Baldoni and Heath ultimately did. Despite making these allegations on behalf of the Wayfair parties, the FAC itself confirms that no demands, threats, or coercive behavior were directed at Abel at all. Under the FAC's allegations, the alleged civil extortion has nothing to do with Abel, nor could any amendment cure the deficiency to state that extortion claim against Miss Lively in good faith. Utterly lacking in basis in fact or law, Abel's extortion claims is unwarranted, frivolous, and sanctionable under Rule 11. Abel's interference and implied covenant claims are legally unreasonable and factually baseless. Abel's interference and implied covenant claims are equally untenable because Abel pleads no facts to suggest Miss Lively's interfered with any of her contracts or business relations. Abel brings 3 interference claims against Miss Lively: intentional interference with contractual relations, intentional interference with prospective economic advantage, and negligent interference with prospective economic advantage. These claims rest exclusively on purported contractual and economic relationships between Wayfair and WME and between Baldoni and WME. So we get the point here. So they're trying to say that, because Abel is tied in with the FAC, that it wasn't worded right. Abel has no stance to take on this. And then it's the same letter for each of the individuals except Justin Baldoni. And then they go on to say, finally, and most fatal of all, any statements that Miss Lively made to anyone about sexual harassment or retaliation are privileged under a combination of the litigation, fair report, and sexual harassment privilege under California Civil Code Section 47.1. Abel makes 0 allegations as to any actual malice by Miss Lively to her, nor could she, because Miss Lively did not even know she existed outside of her text messages and emails. Outside of them, but then she did know that they existed. And there's literally messages between Leslie Sloan, like Blake's people, and Jennifer Abel and Melissa Nathan. So this is just hilarious and a lie to say. Abel's frivolous claims were brought for the improper purpose of harassing Miss Lively, causing delay and increasing the cost of litigation. From its inception, this matter has been plagued by retaliatory conduct. When have they been retaliatory? When have they been? Literally, Blake has been on the offense and the attack this entire time, since day one. Since day one, when she got into even before she got into the editing room. Okay, she has undermined them at every single chance. And in these court dockets, I've just shown you, bam, 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 attack, 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 attack. But them even defending themselves, okay, is a retaliatory conduct. Oh my God. I just can't. Abel's admissions reveal that she engaged in a public relations strategy targeted at refuting any of the sexual harassment claims Miss Lively made and posting to counter Miss Lively's narrative. Miss Lively never said anything once during this entire press tour about sexual harassment. Okay? This is so crazy. But you know who was trying to spin narratives in the media? Leslie Sloan, Blake's people. On top of that, Abel made a public Facebook post on December 23rd, 2024, in which she admitted that there was a social combat plan and that she was flagged accounts that needed to monitor, worked a social team to help us stay on top of the narrative so we could act quickly if we needed, and revealed again and again, joked privately to each other about the internet's feedback about Miss Lively. Abel asked Facebook, now what kind of woman would work against, oh my gosh. Now what kind of a woman would work against another woman who was a victim of all things being claimed, admitting that she knew the details of Miss Lively's allegations, yet appointing herself as the arbiter of the truth and worked against Miss Lively nonetheless. That does not say she knew the truth. She's saying if that was true, what kind of woman would I be to go against Blake Lively if the allegations were true, which they're not? That's what that says. I mean, what a way to spin a narrative. So basically, they go into all the reasons why each of these persons should receive sanctions because, they didn't state proper claims, and they're doing this to just flood the zone and really waste so much of the court's time and money because in their pleading, they didn't properly state what Blake and Ryan did to each of these people. But can we just be clear that Blake in her first CRD, lump them all in together. Hello. And against that backdrop, in the case of Mr. Freeman, you have been aware of, involved in, and or facilitated this course of conduct since your engagement no later than August 13th, 2024. In the case of Mr. Schuster, you have been aware of and involved in or have facilitated this course of conduct, including in the filing of the amending complaint and its baseless claims, as well as the public relations strategy surrounding the litigation since no later than your appearance on the docket on January 22nd, 2025. Further, as to Mr. Friedman, as counsel for Abel and the other Wayfair parties, you have orchestrated flood the zone tactics designated to confuse and mislead the public regarding the nature of this litigation, as well as made statements taking aim at Miss Lively, including by asserting, who is flooding the zone? This is like the projection and the gaslighting sometimes to me is just so funny, because we all know who's flooding the media, who's flooding the zone, who's flooding the court dockets, okay? Like, who has been out every single day? Lively's, this is Brian Freeman's now. They've quoted some things that Brian Freeman has said. Lively's recent motion to dismiss herself from the self-concocted disaster she initiated, one of the most abhorrent examples of abusing our legal system. Stringent rules are put into place to protect the innocent and allow individuals to rightfully defend themselves. Laws are not meant to be twisted and curated to privilege elites to fit their own personal agenda. As we said yesterday, in response to Mr. Reynolds' same cowardly measures, we will continue to hold Miss Lively accountable for her actions of pure malice, which include falsely accusing my clients of harassment and retaliation. Miss Lively's fantastical claims will be swiftly debunked as discovery moves forward, easily disproved with actual evidentiary proof. I like that he said it will be swiftly debunked, because now we know Taylor Swift. But also, yeah, facts. Duh. It is shameful that Miss Lively and her representatives would make such serious and categorically false accusations against Mr. Baldoni, Wayfair Studios, and its representatives, as yet another desperate attempt to fix her negative reputation, which has garnered her from her own remarks and actions during the campaign for the film. It is painfully ironic that Blake Lively is accusing Justin Baldoni of weaponizing the media when her own team orchestrated this vicious attack by sending the New York Times grossly edited documents prior to even filing the complaint. We are releasing all of the evidence. We now show a pattern of bullying and threats to take over the movie. None of this will come as a surprise because, consistent with her past behavior, Blake Lively used other people to communicate those threats and bully her way to get whatever she wanted. We have all the receipts and more. The irony is not lost on anyone that Miss Lively is so petrified of the truth that she has moved to gag it. The immense power that she wielded in Hollywood, built on pure fear for her husband and their powerful friends, came to an end the moment Miss Lively planned a mass distribution of a disturbingly false and well-calculated hit piece in the New York Times. Miss Lively did this with the sole intent to ruin the lives of innocent individuals, and then went the extra mile to place blame on a fictitious smear campaign, all because she quite simply could not accept that the public had organically seen through her facade. When you accuse innocent individuals of something so disturbing as sexual harassment without thinking of the destruction it would cause to not only them, but the entire domestic violence community, this is where accountability for such mean-spirited actions must be taken. Blake isn't just hurting Baldoni by accusing him of sexual harassment when he never did anything wrong. She's also devastating the entirety of the domestic violence community by lodging these allegations. The only plausible conclusion to be drawn from all this conduct is that you are acting with the improper purpose of harassing Miss Lively, causing delay, and needlessly increasing the cost of litigation. We intend We intend to seek monetary sanctions against you, your law firms, and ABLE for the costs and attorney's fees incurred in responding to this frivolous claims in preparing these Rule 11 materials and in other expenses and interest directly resulting from these violations. And they tell them that by delivering this letter, they have 21 days to withdraw the aforementioned claims against Ms. Lively. Should you not withdraw these claims within 21 days, we will file the attached motions for sanctions along with an affidavit and a memorandum of law. Ooh. And they did one of those for every single one of the parties except for Justin Baldoni. They also did one for, as you read, Brian Freeman, the other lawyer, Jamie Heath, Steve Sorvitz, Melissa Nathan. Who am I missing? Jamie Heath, Jennifer Abel, as well as It Ends With Us Movie LLC. So Brian Freeman did respond. Now Blake has asked that these become sealed, but currently I was able to download it. So they did respond. This is Exhibit F. So this is Brian Freeman's response to all of these letters for sanctions to withdraw their lawsuit against Blake Lively. Oh my gosh. Counsel. And this went to Michael Gottlieb and Ezra A. Hudson. Counsel. This firm represents, among others, Jamie Heath, Jennifer Abel, Melissa Nathan, Steve Soritz, Wayfair Studios LLC, and It Ends With Us Movie LLC, collectively the Wayfair plaintiffs, in the above referenced matter. The following is the Wayfair plaintiffs' consolidated response to the 12 Rule 11 letters, collectively the letters, directed to each of the Wayfair plaintiffs by your clients Blake Lively, Miss Lively, and Ryan Reynolds, collectively the Lively defendants. My foot's falling asleep. The letters address alleged pleadings defects that the Lively defendants have already placed before the court in their respective motions to dismiss the First Amendment complaint. The gist of the letters that the FAC's extortions, defamation, and intentional and negligent interference claims are stated on behalf of the Wayfair parties as a group and do not state facts sufficient to state a claim on behalf of the particular plaintiff swept into the definition of the Wayfair parties. For instance, the Lively defendants threatened sanctions against Jamie Heath on the asserted grounds that Mr. Heath lacks standing as that one, Mr. Heath lacks standing to assert an intentional interference claim because the FAC does not allege that he is a party to the allegedly interfered with WMA contract. And two, the FAC fails to plead specific defamatory statements about Mr. Heath, but does so only about others included in the term Wayfair parties. As another example, the Lively defendants complain that Melissa Nathan is grouped under the umbrella of Wayfair parties and the FAC extortions claims, even though only Wayfair, Heath, and Baldoni are proper plaintiffs. The Lively defendants also object that the FAC's false light claim is properly stated only by Baldoni, Heath, Abel, and Storitz, and not Melissa Nathan. Simply put, group pleadings is the defect of the heart of the Lively defendants' Rule 11 letters. Such purported pleading defects, particularly those already before the court in a motion to dismiss, are not the proper subject of a Rule 11 motion. Such motions are improper if they are substantially identical to the arguments made by defendants in support of their motion to dismiss for failure to state a claim. Rule 11 motions should not be employed to test the legal sufficiency or efficacy of allegations in the pleadings, nor should Rule 11 motion be prepared to emphasize the merits of a party's position. The Lively's defendants' Rule 11 arguments are not merely substantially similar, but the same as arguments asserted in their motions to dismiss. Even ignoring the awkward fact that Rule 11 does not apply, even ignoring the awkward fact that Rule 11 does not apply, group pleadings is a common practice, as expressly stated in the response to the Lively defendant's motion to dismiss. If the court deems this definitional issue to be pleading defect, It is easily curable by amendment. A curable pleading defect does not rise to the level of frivolous, legally unreasonable, or factually without foundation as required for Rule 11 sanctions. Put another way, if the court grants your client's motion to dismiss in whole or part, the Wayfair plaintiffs will amend the FAC as directed by the court, obviating by imagined Rule 11 issue. If the court blesses the pleading and denies your motion to dismiss, any Rule 11 motion by your court would be rendered frivolous. Right. So what you're actually doing is frivolous and unreasonable and actually using the court's time, because everything you're saying is actually in your motion to dismiss. It's just so strange and bizarre. Instead, the Supreme Court has recognized the flexibility provided by Rule 11, allowing pleadings based on evidence reasonably anticipated after further investigation or discovery. Discovery in its infancy and the extensive allegations in the FAC support the Wayfair plaintiffs' good faith belief that reasonable investigation and discovery will uncover additional evidence to support the claims of the Wayfair plaintiffs. The lively defendants' Rule 11 threat at this early juncture is, to put it mildly, premature, in addition to being improper during the pendency of the motions to dismiss. Finally, the letters cynically quote Mr. Friedman, whose statements are not pleadings filed under the with the court and thus outside the ambit of Rule 11. Since they have no relevance to Rule 11 sanctions, the only conclusion to be drawn is that the inclusion of the statements in the letters has no purpose but to harass and undermine Mr. Friedman and our firm with the court, the very conduct sanctions seek to curtail. In sum, lively defendants' 12 letters claiming that the Wayfair parties have violated Rule 11 are in themselves frivolous and contrived solely to harass and increase the cost of litigation. Such hardball litigation tactics, including threats of Rule 11 sanctions, are improper. Any motion for Rule 11 sanctions will be addressed accordingly. Please feel free to call me if you wish to discuss this matter further. Even with that response, they still chose to file all of that in the courts. Now, they are trying to get this letter response sealed so that no one sees Brian Freeman's response to them, but he's basically telling y'all, like, what you guys are doing is the exact same thing of what you're saying we're doing. What? Crazy that they still filed this most extreme Rule 11. It makes no sense. Like, who really right now is playing with the courts? Let's move on very quickly. There was a letter to unseal some documents that has been granted. So it looks like as of today, it has been granted. So I'm going to figure out exactly what was unsealed and I'll talk to you guys about that. But moving on, now look at the other documents that Lively filed on the same day. Letter motion to compel the Wayfair Studios to turn over some documents. So let's just quickly see what now this motion to compel is. And let's all keep in mind that the Wayfair parties have claimed late last week, Brian Freeman made a statement telling the courts that Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds have still yet to turn over one single thing that they've requested. One. Now, this is their second filing of a motion to compel. They've already, they're just so, let's go over it. I've just browsed through all of those attachments and documents, and it is a lot, so I'm not going to cover everything in here. But basically, after, I guess, the New York Times article went out and Blake Lively filed her CRD complaint officially, Wayfair hired a third party in order to investigate the sexual harassment claims and retaliation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they've reached out to Blake Lively and her team to be part of the investigation and ask questions, and she declined. And there's a bunch of letters between them, which I will read in a separate video. But in this video, we'll just go over the main letter that was attached because it kind of gives all of the explanation. May 19th from Manat Dear Judge Lyman, pursuant to Rules 1C and 4C of the court's individual rules and practices, Blake Lively respectfully submits this letter motion to compel Wayfair Studios LLC and It Ends With Us Movie LLC, altogether the Wayfair, to produce materials responsive to Miss Lively's fourth set of requests for production. The requests, which seek documents and witness recordings concerning Wayfair's purported neutral workplace investigation into Miss Lively's sexual harassment and retaliation claims. The investigation. Wayfair is withholding such documents and recordings, claiming at least for now attorney-client privilege and work product. Makes sense? This so-called investigation is a disingenuous charade. Wayfair failed, although it was legally required to investigate Miss Lively's concern when she first raised them in May of 2023. Had it done so, Miss Lively would have participated in such an investigation, and it would have substantiated the sexual harassment she suffered while on the set of the film It Ends With Us, which included, among other things, Mr. Baldoni's unsolicited discussions about his addiction to pornography and sex life, and his improvised intimacy scenes about without Miss Lively's consent. I'm trying so hard to hold my tongue. Because what about you, Blake? Did Justin Baldoni ask for you to bite his lip? Did Justin Baldoni ask for you to send 14-page text messages at 2 in the morning? Did Justin Baldoni ask you to describe really your flirty way with him, how you're a ball buster, sexy with no teeth? Like, I mean, all of the things that you were sending to that man was, I think, grossly inappropriate to send to your boss. And you were also a producer on the set, meaning you were also a boss on the set. Okay. Mr. Baldoni's unsolicited discussions about his addiction to pornography and sex life and his improvised intimate scenes without Miss Lively's consent. If her complaints were promptly investigated, as the law requires, she may also have been spared the retaliatory smear campaign by Wayfair and its co-defendants. Instead, Wayfair waited years until late January 2025 to initiate this investigation. By that time, Wayfair had already forcefully publicly denied Miss Lively's allegations and sued her and several others for $400 million for making the very same allegations that are now the subject of this neutral investigation for a workplace that no longer exists. That is so rude. Why don't you think they exist anymore, Blake? OMG. Ugh. What's more is by January, its counsel had repeatedly called Miss Lively a liar in widely circulated media interviews. Wow. I just want to see the footnote on why they would actually say that for a workplace that no longer exists. It says 1, there's a footnote, so it's just down here. During the parties' conferral, Wayfair's counsel Brian Freeman incorrectly asserted that its obligation to investigate to take corrective action was mooted by the parties' execution of the return to production protections document in January 2024, setting aside the legal fallacy. Mr. Freeman's position is a death knell for any argument that this is a legitimate, neutral workplace investigation consistent with the Wayfair's legal obligations. According to Mr. Freeman, there is no such obligation. Okay, and we continue. Under the guise of the investigation neutrality, Wayfair is conducting one-sided interviews of unsuspecting third parties, potentially tainting the ongoing litigation while reserving for itself the option of whether it will release its findings or bury them behind a cloak of attorney-client privilege. Meanwhile, the investigation has dragged on for nearly 5 months, conveniently providing a pretextual basis for Wayfair to refuse to produce otherwise patently discoverable information, particularly given Wayfair's publicly stated foregone conclusion that Miss Lively's allegations are not true. Wayfair is not permitted to wield the attorney-client privilege as a sword and a shield, invoking the privilege for now, but insisting that it may waive later at some unknown future date, presumably if and only if the investigation yields a result Wayfair likes, which it will no doubt publicly release with much fanfare. The motive is clear. Wayfair hopes to conduct shadow fact discovery under the pretext of an attorney investigation to prevent Ms. Lively from obtaining critical information until it is too late. Wayfair's refusal to confirm its position on the attorney-client privilege is improper. Moreover, regardless of whether Wayfair intends to rely on the investigation at trial, its choice to initiate the investigation in the middle of contentious litigation years after the events at issue first arose means that it must disclose the underlying materials now during discovery. Since late January, the investigators, Rains, Feldman, Literal LLP, and Adam Investigations Counsel have contacted potential witnesses and in doing so represented that they are conducting a neutral fact-finding investigation. Upon discovering this, Ms. Lively immediately raised concerns directly to the investigation and to the Wayfair about the investigation proceedings in parallel with discovery in this action. Its purported neutrality, given Wayfair's publicly stated position and the risk of confusing or tainting witnesses, among other issues. In March, given these concerns, Ms. Lively requested that to ensure transparency, the investigation makes several disclosures to witnesses, including disclosing at the outset that were retained by Wayfair, which alone would control the investigation materials. Both Wayfair and its investigation have refused to share any details about the investigation, who has been contacted, what topics have been discussed, and when the investigation will conclude. They have also refused to confirm what disclosures are being provided to witnesses or to share that with Ms. Lively any materials created or obtained, including their audio recordings of witness interviews. On March 31st, 2025, Ms. Lively served the request seeking 1. All documents and communications concerning the investigation, 2. All notes, recordings, and interview memoranda, 3. Documents of identifying each person contacted or interviewed, and 4. Communications between the investigation and any person concerning the investigation materials. On April 30th, 2025, Wayfair responded with boilerplate objections invoking attorney-client privilege and work product protection. While initially claiming that they would produce relevant non-privileged documents within their possession, custody, or control during the parties' conferral, Wayfair's counsel represented that they did not have the investigation materials. When asked whether Wayfair intends to assert the attorney-client privilege, counsel responded that they assumed so, but were not sure if Wayfair would rely on the investigation materials at trial since the investigation is ongoing. Meanwhile, the investigators have refused to produce anything in response to subpoenas issued to them, absent a privilege waiver from Wayfair or court order. They have also failed to provide a corresponding privilege log or to even confirm that they will do so. The investigation materials are highly relevant. Of course you want them, Blake. Yeah, the investigation materials are highly relevant, are necessary for Ms. Lively and the court to ensure that witness engagement has been proper and have been put at issue by Wayfair. It's just so baffling to me that she still doesn't have a case. She has no case. She needs this, and she's hoping that this investigation fails and that it proves that Wayfair hasn't, followed the rules and whatever misconduct that they have within Wayfair. She needs this because she does not have a case right now. She still has zero case, zero evidence, zero. They must be produced first. First, Wayfair is not permitted to assert blanket objections and categorically withhold documents on attorney-client privilege or work product grounds without identifying the specific materials being withheld and establishing a factual basis for the asserted objection. Second, Wayfair has not come close to meeting its burden to show that the attorney-client privilege or work product protection applies to this investigation materials. Wayfair has failed to explain why or how witness interview notes, interview recordings, or communications with third-party witnesses are privileged, and it has not been confirmed that the investigators are rendering legal advice rather than simply conducting a neutral fact-finding investigation as they have repeatedly suggesting. Oh, wow, so now you're throwing this company under the bus? Oh, this company must not be doing their job either because everyone's out to get Blake. Everyone's out to get Blake, so they're literally out of pocket hiring a third company to conduct research at Wayfair. How do you know that they don't want to share this with you, Blake? Because some of your co-stars and most of the cast and crew that were there, or anybody that works with Wayfair, is going to side with Justin and say that you were an absolute monster to work with and everyone had to walk on eggshells and you are completely bipolar when it comes to how you treat individuals, especially women. You are a mean girl to girls, okay? Wayfair cannot manufacture protection by rerouting or otherwise discover factual inquiry through attorneys. Third, Wayfair waived any applicable attorney-client privileges or work product protection by, among other things, placing the adequacy of the investigation at issue via its 13th affirmation defense that is appropriately, completely, and fully performed and discharged. If a defendant hopes to prevail by showing its investigation took action appropriate to its findings, it cannot stand on the attorney-client privilege. The adequacy of Wayfair's response to Miss Lively's workplace sexual harassment complaint is a central issue in this case and its entire basis of her 6th cause of action. You would think sexual harassment would be the first cause of action, but you know, whatever. And then they go on to say, finally, allowing Wayfair to withhold the materials on the basis that the investigation is ongoing or privileged while reserving the right to produce later if deemed favorable is highly prejudicial to Miss Lively given the posture of this case. It deprives her of the ability to test the scope, credibility, or timing of the investigation, much less obtain the fact witness information the investigator had been collecting over the past 5 months, which Wayfair may use now. Wayfair should not be allowed to conceal critical evidence during discovery only to weaponize it later at trial. Then they quote some laws which require defendants to state now whether it intends to offer evidence of the nature of this investigation as any part of the defensive action. Then it goes on to say that fact discovery closes August 14th, 2025 with substantial completion of document production due by July 1st, 2025. And as such, the time for Wayfair to produce documents is now. For the foregoing reasons, Ms. Lively respectfully requests that the court compel Wayfair to produce all responsive documents immediately, including all witness recordings. At this point, it's like I never thought that I could feel bad for Brian Freeman because he is, I mean, a beast in the courtroom, and he has defended so many people who have been wrongly accused and is brilliant. I mean, he's a brilliant monster that you want in your corner, right? Like, he is actually so good. But at this point, I just feel like Blake's team is just drowning them in paperwork and motions and letters and this and that and that. And I really do think that this was submitted in order for the headlines tomorrow or even later today to read, Wayfair, Justin Baldoni hires team to investigate sexual harassment. Justin Baldoni knew about sex. You know what I mean? Like, this is all headlines. And the more that they project onto Wayfair and Justin Baldoni, they're actually doing it. Blake Lively and her team, Leslie Sloan, was actually smearing Justin Baldoni, and they had to defend themselves. And that's why when all of the stuff was coming back onto Blake that was organic from the people, she immediately was like, they must be doing this, because that's what they themselves were doing. So far, so good. That's everything happening right now in the courts. Okay, we're all caught up until probably tomorrow. I already know the Wayfair people are going to come back. And I hope Judge Lehman literally stops Blake Lively's people. Put your foot down. Enough is enough. Oh my gosh, this is so crazy. But we are all caught up, and now it's time to go over your comments. Mary Posa, 1933, said, love your channel. Hey, girl. Side note, Taylor needs to say something on Justin's behalf, period. There's no way she wasn't in the know of Blake's false accusations about Justin. She may not have known all of the deceitful details and wasn't part of the collusion or malicious behavior, but she knows now. So speak up, girl. It's BS. She was fine with what her BFF was doing to Justin until it affected her personally. I don't care about these grown-ass teenagers. They are all shady. Yeah, pretty much. Preach. Carol LHU. She says, if Taylor steps up with all she has to lose by telling the truth, that says a lot about her character at the end of the day. Easy to do the right thing when you have nothing to lose. Terrifying if you have everything to lose. So Taylor acted juvenile and maybe worse, believing she was doing so in confidence with her bestie. But she stepped up and did what was right. Okay, Blake Lively? Seriously, Blake Lively was your bestie. Ryan and Blake, the users pretending to be buddies, loved bombed that woman publicly and privately for years and years and years on end because they benefited from attaching themselves to her. I agree. Blake and Ryan love bomb people. They groom them. They hoard them in. They love bomb them, and then they throw them away when they don't need them anymore. This is like... has happened so many times, like with everyone. Look at just, let alone Isabel Ferreira and Brendan Sklenar. Look at just those two. These comments were just, yeah. Absolutity says, your kisses at the motion of V-Day was so adorable. Keep up your positive energy. Thanks, girl or boy. And then Baldog says, as successful as it was, the movie, it ends with us, I wonder how much better it would have been if Justin was able to complete his vision. And I agree too, because after reading a lot of the things that, you know, Blake Lively had to put 80% of Justin's edit back in, but he wasn't able to shoot it the way he wanted or capture it the way that I know that he could as an independent filmmaker myself. And loving Justin's past work, I know I could just sense the vision that he wanted for it, and it was not this big, huge commercial Barbie movie that Blake was going for. And it's really sad that Blake was able to refuse to shoot scenes, even scenes that were already choreographed, that Ryan Reynolds was able to refuse Blake to shoot scenes, which to me is like absolutely, the whole fact that Ryan Reynolds is even involved to me is disgusting. Like, as an independent girly, why is your husband involved? That literally, Blake, what are you, a 6-year-old kid who needs adult supervision? It's so gross to have your husband on set, not only on set, but calling the shots, deleting scenes, refusing to allow you to shoot scenes, showing up to business meetings. Disgusting. But I truly, truly think that too, what a film this could have been if Justin was able to get his vision as the director and producer and creator of this movie, who has the movie rights. He owns the rights. Blake Lively does not, as much as she went on about the press tour that she made the movie. She did not. Sandra Miller's 7113 comment really got me. A video popped up 4 days ago saying a board member of the New York Times has large investments leaked to Ryan Reynolds' companies and has an interest in him succeeding so those investments pay off. I think we only see the front end of what's happening, and while we, the public, are busy discussing who follows who on Instagram, big money is being moved around in the background. Hence, Ryan Reynolds is being seen everywhere at the moment trying to save his and his partner's investments. Credit to YouTuber Same Girl Different Time. That's going to go in the deep dive of Ryan Reynolds. Only 2 more here. But Pamela Morrison 4086 said she never went to please her lawyer, her union. She went straight to the New York Times, the news. That's where this poor victim went. She makes me sick. Her false claims make life so much more difficult for real victims. Blake Lively, I believe, is a narcissist and perhaps also a sociopath. Yet again, she went to the media. And this was in response to when Brian Freeman filed his letter of affidavit in the courts. Blake Lively's team ran to the media to make a statement, not vice versa. They ran to the media to say that Brian Freeman's only doing it for the media. Make it make sense. And last but not least, a comment that absolutely blew my mind. A woman. I presume you are a woman, because if you're a man, I will eat you alive. Okay, if you were a man coming on my channel trying to tell me how I'm supposed to dress. I was in a tank top, and your only comment about my entire video is to cover up. I was in a tank top. If I decide tomorrow to shoot a video in a freaking bikini, that's me, okay? What do you want me to wear, an entire Handmaid's outfit? Because I have that in my closet too. Not here, sweetheart, okay? Not here. I was in a tank top. This mentality is the same mentality of telling a woman, well, what were you wearing? What time did you go out? Oh, cover up. Don't want to distract the boys. Oh, girls can't wear tank tops. Oh, your shorts are too short around the boys. No, sweetheart, okay? It was hot. It was Friday afternoon and I was in a tank top. So what we're not going to do here is we're not going to tell me on my channel what I can and cannot wear and to cover up, okay? Thank you. Thank you everyone who reached out and commented about my weekend to have a great time. I had such a great time. I did something I never had done in so long. I went to a huge music festival called Electric Island. It was so fun. I wore like all these jewels on my face and this amazing outfit that I've never worn in probably, oh my gosh. And did I dance? I danced and I danced and I danced. I danced for like 5.5 hours. Like my calves were sore the next day. But I had the best time. Like I had so much fun. And also kind of lost my voice a little bit and I'm still recovering. Okay. It was a weekend. I really, this weekend just kind of let loose, Friday, did my video, edited it, went to work. After work, the Leafs came out with a pretty good win. I mean, it was a 2-0, tied it for game 7. My friend came over after I was done work. We stayed up late, had some drinks, had some stuff, took a couple of gummies, had a good time, stayed up late, celebrated. It was such a beautiful night. I'm trying to move past it, but the visuals in my mind, okay, the visuals go away. It was so fun. And then Saturday, got up, got ready to go to this music festival, went to the music festival. On Sunday, I kind of just hung out, laid low, didn't really do much. And then yesterday, I had an amazing rewrite business meeting for the feature I'm producing. And it was just so fun to just let loose, to not have any pressure to be anyone, do anything, and just have fun. Summer is just here. I mean, today it doesn't feel like summer outside, but it's around the corner. Some days feel like it. And I think that is kind of the point of it all too, right? Like we can grind and grind and grind, and I can show up here every day and just work away in my office, and I could just be glued to the next thing and really, plugging away. But I think the je ne sais quoi of it, of life too, is really letting go and having fun and dancing and doing something you've never done and enjoying new experiences while still maintaining that momentum of the things that you want and knowing that they are on the way. But you need to live a little too and have a good time while you're at it. And I think that now more than ever, I'm really trying to curate that balance of grinding and enjoying life. And this weekend was just, I just felt so blessed. I was around so many amazing people. And yeah, I'm kind of happy right now. I feel like I'm in a really good place. And this is after months of thinking that everything was gone. I had lost everything and I was in a very, very dark place. And what I didn't do is I didn't give up. I really, really, really fought my way back. And my foundation and my relationship with self and God and just my foundation, I just can tell like it's just being built differently. And I think in my previous past, why it was so easy to be taken away and why, I crumbled and life crumbled and my life underneath me literally swept away so easy is because my foundation wasn't built on love, God, truth, who I am, morally aligned. And now those are like just my main purposes. Like literally my main purpose right now is just to like continually to foster all of these foundations that make a strong woman and a beautiful life. And I'm so about it. So be about yourself, fuel into yourself, fill into yourself. Okay, and I hope you can find a day soon to just breathe and have a good time and dance it out. I will be back this week probably tomorrow to go over more with you because this already is such a long video. But that's pretty much everything wrapped up into a nice little video here for you. And if you made it this far, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here and being part of this community. I honestly wouldn't be able to show up every day if you weren't here. And I want you to know that deep from inside of my heart, truly, I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you so much. And I love you. And I hope you're having the most amazing day. Talk to you soon. Bye.